Good morning and welcome everyone to our Equitable Services meeting for planning for the 2021-2022 school year. The LEAs met just for a few minutes briefly prior, and it's been quite a year we've had since the last time we met. We usually meet the last Tuesday of March every year. Last year, we didn't meet until May 5th. So we had a little bit of a delay, but still hopefully services started and we're able to reach the students and staff and families that needed those services. So thank you again for joining us today. I am Laura Otten. I am the school improvement consultant here at Kent ISD, and I work with state and federal programs and coordinate services for equitable services for private schools as well. So today we're going to just do a brief overview. Some of you may be new to the process, not quite sure what all of this equitable services is, and we're going to give you a chance to meet together with local districts and private schools to begin that consultation process. There is a folder. Everything is organized in a Google folder for our consortium, and you can feel free to go anytime there. LEAs have been working in that folder to see what information's been put in by the private schools. Private schools have been uploading their documentation there. If you are not familiar with that folder, I suggest that you just take a few moments to go in, poke around, see what's there. Nothing private is in there. It is available for everyone to see, all the way from participation and basic information on private schools to that documentation that we ask you to submit, copies of communication that have been sent out, templates and resources that you may need to use, as well as today's presentation. I have located a great resource and have been using it, especially this spring. It is spring now, so it's been spring for about a week. And this winter, that if you are not familiar with it, if you have questions about equitable services with Title I, that is available in our folder. It is the guidance from the U.S. Department of Education, and it is an awesome resource to give you whatever information you need. And it's organized very well. So if you had a question on consultation, there's a whole section on consultation and then organized by different questions you might have. If you're looking at allocations, expenditures, how does an LEA determine the low income families? It's all here for you if you are looking for a resource like that. Today's session is being recorded, so if you have questions, you can go back and give it a listen, or if there's anyone who's unable to join us today, they are able to catch up on the information we all received and be on the same page. So getting started on the question of why are there equitable services for private school students, families, and staff? Allocations for federal programs for local districts is determined by low income and poverty, census poverty status within a district's boundaries. So when that census is taken, it is counting all of the families and all of the students that live within those district boundaries, no matter where they attend school. So if a student lives in a school district, they're a low income family, but they attend a private school, they generate that allocation. That family helps generate an allocation for services for students who have academic needs for that private school. The programs that are subject to equitable services are Title I, Parts A and C, Title II, Title III, and Title IV. Most of the districts within our consortium in Kent County are Title II and Title IV, with some Title I and very few Title IC and Title III. So consultation, this is what we're starting today. Consultation is a process. It's not a one-time meeting that happens every spring. It's an ongoing process that happens throughout the year. The goal of this consultation is to reach an agreement on how to provide equitable and effective programs for eligible private school children, but also for private school staff and their families, depending on which federal program you're looking at. That meaningful consultation must be timely and include the viewpoints of all parties involved. LEAs typically initiate that consultation process, and that is what I do at the ISD by sending out those initial participation letters to the private schools in the area. Consultation must also include an affirmation that it did occur or that it did not. So if the parties agree that it did not occur, there is a process that you can go through in order to mediate that meaningful consultation. And I'll share with you this morning the person that would help with that. Meaningful consultation is documented for both the private school, the local school district, and for the Michigan Department of Education. This document is located in the main folder for the consortium and includes the process that's listed here with the programs, as well as the different topics by grant source. So if a private school would like to participate in Title I Part A services, then all of these items about Title I Part A would be completed both by the LEA and by the private school. It is completed both at the initial consultation, which is today, or you may not complete this document today because you may not have all of your decisions made, but it's completed every spring. And then during amendment time, which is December into January. At both times, this needs to be documented with your check boxes, and then there's a page for signatures. So there's the section on Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV. Again, the affirmation of meaningful consultation, whether it occurred or not. If it did not occur, then you're able to provide a narrative of why it did not occur. And then there's a link for the process to work with the ombudsman if an agreement cannot be reached. And finally, a place for signatures. So this document will be completed as an agreement between every district and private school who will be participating in federal programs. If you have questions today, please feel free to throw them into the chat. And I'm working on two screens here, so I'm glancing back and forth to make sure that I catch anything that you might have. So we're virtual. We've been virtual for a year now. And so how do you still conduct that meaningful consultation in a virtual way? Well, electronic signatures are being accepted, and I see that happening from now on because we've learned to maneuver within a virtual world and continue to have meaningful consultation without it being face-to-face. So again, while today may be that initial meeting, there will probably be follow-up communication in order to complete that document and complete the process. So if there is a disagreement, Every state has an ombudsman who is tasked with enforcing the requirements of equitable services, as well as providing resources and being a mediator for the equitable services process. Fred Williams is our interim ombudsman. He has been interim for about 2 years, which is a pretty long time. Before Fred, there was Terry Nugent, and Terry went to work on my KIP, so Fred stepped in. And so if you have any questions, you can always contact Fred at MDE to help you out in any way that you need. Rumor has it that coming up here later in the spring, they're going to post for a new ombudsman. So Fred will not have to be the interim anymore. So I'm going to pause for a moment, thinking about meaningful consultation, thinking about the types of programs that are part of equitable services. What questions or wonderings might you have? Okay, again, feel free if you have a question to put it in the chat. So how are programs designed? Programs are designed using the continuous improvement process in order to assess needs, create a plan based on those needs, implement the plan, and then monitor, adjust, and evaluate based on how those plans are being implemented. So private schools are asked to complete a needs assessment to identify the needs of eligible students and staff. So this document is required no matter what federal programs that you are participating in order to determine how do you know that you need professional learning for staff? How do you know that you need services for students? And what are those needs that those staff members and the students may have? This helps narrow that down and documents that process for you. In addition, you then take that needs assessment and determine those actions that are going to take place in order to close the gaps that you have between your current state and your desired state. So what needs to happen in order to increase student achievement, to increase teacher competency as you move forward with your plan for the year? And again, that plan needs to align with the needs assessment. This again is a plan that's required for everyone, no matter what federal programs you're participating in. You need to have a plan for students and or a plan for staff. Finally, it's the responsibility of both the LEA in partnership with the private schools to monitor, adjust, and evaluate these programs. So looking at the initial implementation as students return to school in the fall, setting up a timeline of how often are the two parties going to meet throughout the school year to determine if the programming is effective, how the budget is going, what do assessment results look like, and then adjusting if need be at any time throughout the year, not just at amendment time in the winter. At the end of the year, it's sitting down together to say what worked, what didn't work, what do we need to change, what might we keep for the following year. So the process really reflects that continuous improvement cycle of assessing that need, creating a plan, implementing, and then monitoring, adjusting, and evaluating those programs. Some of the funding may be used to purchase materials and equipment, and it's always a good reminder to everyone that those Title I funds or any of those funds are Any of the Title I Part A funds may only be used to meet the needs of participating students. So if a student is not identified for services, they cannot use the materials or equipment or services that are provided. If materials or equipment are purchased that are non-consumables, those are actually the property of the local district, and the local district is responsible for ordering those, inventorying those items, and identifying with a label or some other form of identification that those are the property of the local school district. So before we move to specifically Title I, what questions or wonderings might you have about required documentation for all programs? Okay, so the purpose of Title I is to improve the academic achievement of the disadvantaged. So we want to close those educational achievement gaps for students. Eligible students that attend a private school, reside in a Title I school attendance zone, are identified as failing or most at risk of failing multiple educationally related objective criteria. Poverty or coming from a low income family is not a criterion for services. So while low income families help generate that allocation for services, those who receive services are those that need academic support. Title I Part A services for private school students do not need to be in the same subject areas or grade levels as the public school children. However, it must be in the same grade span. So if the local school district only provides services for middle school students, then only eligible students who are in middle school in the private school would be eligible for those services. If the local school district provides services in elementary school, but not in the middle or high school, which is the most common, then private school students who are in elementary would be the only ones considered for services. Again, the allocation is generated by the number of private school children from low-income families who reside in a Title I school attendance zone. So if there are 0 low-income students in a private school, then there would be no allocation generated and no services provided. Income status can be determined in 5 different ways. It can be determined using the same form of collection as the local school district, like a free reduced lunch eligibility form. It can be done by proportionality. It can be done by looking at a survey of your families and looking at another different source. So maybe a private school has a needs-based tuition program to where students of low-income families are eligible for reductions in tuition or scholarships to attend the private school. It is up to the LEA and the private school to, during consultation, ensure that there is an agreement on how that data is collected and how those allocations are determined. And I need to pause because I've been using the acronym LEA this morning, and some of you may not know what that is, so I apologize. It stands for Local Education Agency, and it is equatable to the local school district. So when I say LEA, that is the language within legislation, but it refers to the local district. And so part of the documentation process for Title I is to provide student addresses and grade levels to the local school districts. We don't need student names at this time because there's no need to know the name. That's just not information that's necessary. We need to know their grade level, where they're living, determine the resident district that they're living in, and then whether they're free or reduced lunch eligible or low income. If you're looking at other types of programs, so maybe are they EL or immigrant? This information helps local districts determine what the allocations might need in order to generate that allocation. So there's a question in the chat, thank you. Does the private school need to share documentation of free reduced lunch forms with the LEA for verification? If that is, for example, the methodology they've used to determine low income students. So this is definitely a part of the consultation process. So if it's agreed upon between the local district and the private school that they are going to use those free reduced lunch forms, the local district can ask to take a look at those forms to verify the numbers. Absolutely. If you're using, for example, needs-based scholarship or tuition reduction, there it is allowable for the public school district to ask to see that methodology, ask to see the criteria, and match it up with the numbers that have been determined. So it's all part of the consultation process. We're not trying to hide information from each other. We're just trying to get all of the information necessary in order to provide the most appropriate services to students, families, and staff. And you can't do that without knowing for sure what that allocation might be. Another question, can you explain proportionality as a method of determining low income eligibility? So there's two parts to this question. So I go to my handy dandy document here that I love. Proportionality is all of the things explained in question B11. But proportionality looks at the local district and determining their number of free reduced lunch students or their low income students. So let's say that the local district had, or that school has a 50% free reduced lunch rate. So the private school, let's say they have 30 or 60 students that live in that local district, District A, let's say, that has the 50% free reduced lunch population. Since they have 60 students, proportionally 50% of those students that live in that attendance zone would qualify for free and reduced lunch. So 30 would be that number. So again, proportionality is your local district is 50% free reduced lunch. The private school looks at their students that reside in that district and using that proportion, that percentage to determine an allocation. So again, if they had 60 students attending that public or living in that public school district, 30 of them would essentially be counted as low income. Also, are you suggesting a survey of families asking for their income as a method of determination of eligibility? So again, that's under question B11 in this document. And And it does state that the only information necessary for an LEA to collect from a survey is verification of residence in a participating Title I public school attendance area, grade level and age of each child, and income level of parents. So yes, asking for their income as a method of determination of eligibility. You don't know if they're low income if you don't know what their income is. And so the free and reduced lunch form does ask for income information, as well as a survey would. Or if you're using a comparable source, like a needs-based scholarship or tuition reduction program, you would know there's a need because income has been reported. Okay, so can you repeat what you said about a high school qualifying students at a private school when the LEA does not provide services in that grade span? So if a public school district does not provide services to their high school students, then private school students that are in high school are not eligible for Title I. And then a follow-up question, do we use the proportionality of only those who are Title I schools? It says an LEA may apply the low income percentage to each participating Title I public school attendance area. So yes, it would be those that reside in that Title I school attendance area, and you would use that school's free and reduced lunch count for proportionality. Another question, do we have to determine with the LEA which of the three ways to determine low income? So that is part of your consultation process, that you would want to share that methodology that was used by the private school to determine low income. That's one of the questions on the checklist that you have to check off. So it opens the conversation to determine that you're capturing all of the students who would qualify for low income. Great questions today. Keep them coming. All right. Again, Title I allocations for private school students are calculated before any spending happens, before any transfers by the local district. So for some of you who may not know, local districts can transfer funds between certain federal programs. For example, they can take their Title IV allocation and transfer that into their Title I account and then just use that money as if it were Title I. If that is to happen, a conversation takes place during the consultation process about any transfers that the local district may be thinking about. In addition, estimated allocations for local districts have not been released yet. They typically aren't released until about middle of April. However, beginning this consultation process now allows for that conversation around needs, types of services, numbers of low income students. Local districts can use their allocation from last year as kind of a starting point to get an idea of what that allocation might be. But again, they cannot give you a guarantee on what that allocation looks like for 21-22 until they receive that from MDE. MDE in the state approved their budget. Their cycle starts October 1st, which is why there is an amendment time that happens in December and January. So while in the spring they have estimated allocations, Final allocations are determined for the budget year starting October 1 at the federal or the state level. And so once those final allocations are determined, consultation continues if there are any changes. Okay. As Michelle said to our locals earlier today, Michelle is our consultant from MDE. We previously used a calculation worksheet. That calculation worksheet still applies as far as the formulas. So if you wanted to run through a scenario, you could still use that. However, whoops, the equitable services calculation worksheet is actually going to be in Nexus, which is that new system we're using. Again, it's important for there to be communication between the local district and the private school on how those allocations were determined. And typically that was through sharing what they looked like in the worksheet. Feel free to ask each other questions at any time if you wonder how allocations were calculated, so that everyone's on the same page and can see how that takes place. I think we got through a lot of questions with Title I. Keep them coming if you still have them, but I'm going to move into Title II. And Title II, a little bit easier than Title I. It's for professional learning for your staff. It really, the end product is to have increased student achievement, increased capacity of staff, and ensuring that your students' needs are being met because the adults are continuing their learning. Title II Part A funding is determined by the total enrollment at a private school. It's not those that just reside in that local district's boundaries. It's not just low income students. It is based on total enrollment. So let's say Wyoming, there is a private school located physically, their building is in the District of Wyoming. That private school would like to participate in Title II. They share their total enrollment with Wyoming, no matter the grade levels, no matter income status, and then an allocation is generated that way. For the local districts, the formula that they use is a percentage of poverty and a percentage over the total population. And so that is how the local district's allocation is determined, if you ever wondered what that was. But again, Title II Part A, based on total enrollment of students at the private school. For Title II, in addition to the needs assessment and the plan, there is a professional development planning sheet that needs to be completed by a private school wishing to participate in Title II. It identifies what training is needed, how that aligns to your improvement plan, what content areas it might cover, what funding is required. So being very specific about how much it costs, who's participating, how are you going to measure the impact on student achievement? So how do you know this is going to positively impact students? In addition, LEAs are responsible for the registration of any professional learning that a private school staff member may attend. Because the LEA cannot reimburse a private school, write a check to the private school, it is recommended that the local district do the registering for the school. That way they can pay it and it's all clean. However, if something comes up and an individual staff member, an individual teacher would like to register for a training themselves and pay for it, the local district can reimburse that individual teacher, but cannot reimburse the private school. Title IV is pretty much as simple as Title II as far as determining allocations. The purpose of Title IV is to improve students' academic achievement by increasing the capacity of states, local education agencies, schools, and communities to provide students with well-rounded education, improve school conditions for student learning, health and safety, and improve the use of technology in order to improve the academic achievement and digital literacy of all students. While I'm doing a quick overview of Title IV, if you look at the slides for today, those descriptions of each of those is included in the presentation. Again, Title IV is based on total enrollment at the private school. And so that's the information that would need to be provided to the public school district. And if a public school district receives over $30,000 in Title IV funding, there is a formula that they have to look at for their spending. And it includes whatever spending is done with the private school. So I'm going to pause. So we've talked about several things today. We talked about consultation. We talked about documenting the continuous improvement cycle. We've talked about Title I, Title II, and Title IV. What questions or wonderings might you have? You can feel free to put it in the chat or unmute. Good question. Could you discuss what well-rounded education might include? So let me just pull that up real quick here. Okay, so well-rounded is essentially similar to Title I, but includes a couple of different areas as well, around arts and music and STEM, community involvement, those sorts of things. So whatever's allowable under Title I essentially, plus a few extra areas that you don't traditionally think about. Okay. So we're going to move on to next steps now. This is the heart of our meeting together today. So we are going to put you into breakout rooms, and there's been a breakout room created for every district that's participating in our consortium. For private schools, select the breakout room for the district in which your building is physically located. So you get to select your breakout room. Love that feature within Zoom. Again, if you're for the district in which your building is physically located. So if your building is located in Grand Rapids Public Schools, Grand Rapids does not participate in our consortium, I want you to go ahead and select the district in which you have the most free and reduced lunch students first. So let's say you're located in Grand Rapids, but they don't participate. So you need to do some consultation with somebody. And let's say most of your free and reduced lunch students, we'll stick with Wyoming, live in Wyoming. Go ahead and join the Wyoming breakout room and begin that consultation process. Again, that document is located in today's folder. And I ask you just to go ahead and if you have questions while you're meeting with each other, you can exit that room and come back to the main room. If you need to switch districts because you're located in Grand Rapids, you can always come back to the main room and I can help you move to a different district if you need that. Okay, what questions, and I'll keep the meeting open for a good hour and a half if we need to. I can see if people are leaving the meeting, if they're still meeting, no big deal. I'll keep it open for you. So before I send you into breakouts, what questions might you have about where you need to go? Okay, so I'm going to open all the rooms. It should, what I'll do first is I will stop sharing. And I am going to open the rooms and you should be able to see something to go ahead and pick that.
Laura, this is Aaron Winkelkon from Livingstones. Can I ask a favor of you?
Yes.
I'm calling in on my phone and unable to select a breakout room. Are you able to place me in the Kentwood breakout room?
Yes, I can do that. Is your number end in 7168?
That's it. Yep.
Okay, perfect. I'll send you there.
Great. Thank you, Laura.
Mhm.
Laura, I'm not sure I know how to get to the breakout rooms.
Okay, I will send you.
Me either.
I don't see the choices either.
I don't either.
Okay.
I think we all need help.
Okay, I'll start sending you there if I know where I need to put you. Jen, Cedar Springs, Jen, Jen, Joel. Okay. Okay.
I should be in Godfrey Lee.
Jessica, okay, let me put you in Godfrey Lee. There you go.
And can you put me in RPS?
Yes, you are going to Rockford.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can I go to Godwin, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Laura,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any privates in my attendance area. So
Well, look at you.
Yeah, so normally the other LEAs kind of handle this. I've reached out to each of the groups with an email. Should I join their conversations right now instead of having my own breakout room? Because they're not likely to come to my breakout room all by myself.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. You can join whichever breakout room you'd like to.
Okay, I just don't see a list of breakout rooms to know how to join.
All right. Where do you want to go?
Well, my largest group of kids is with Rockford and Our Lady of Consolation.
Okay, so let me send you, let me find out there you are, and I'm gonna move you to Rockford.
Thanks.
There you go. Yep. Okay. Okay. Got it. Iron Center. Okay. Jenny, where can I send you to?
Sorry, I need to get into the Kenowa meeting. The computer I was on earlier,
Okay.
I didn't have audio or video on it. So
No problem. You're sending
Perfect.
you to Kentwood.
thank you.
Yep.
Not Kenowa.
Oh, Kennewa, I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I'll move you.
I was in Kenowa and no one was there, so I came back.
Oh, she's coming
Oh.
to you.
Okay, send me back.
Okay. Cindy, I think just at the bottom
Oh,
with
no.
your toolbar, you're going to have to select the breakout room because I cannot
Oh,
move
okay.
you since you're already assigned.
Okay, I think I got it.
Yep. Okay.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Who else do I need to put into a breakout room?
I need to go to Rockford if
Laura,
possible.
can you put me in the breakout room for Byron Center?
Yep. Okay, so.
We're just waiting for Jody.
Okay.
Well,
Oops, hold on, I got